All right, good afternoon. Thank you to one of you. Today is September 3rd, 2019. You're part of our Rowan County Commission meeting, the first meeting of September. Only 3 months left for Christmas shopping, in case you're inclined to think of that. We're glad that you're here today and you're spending your time with us. We hope you find it profitable. There's a couple things we do that's a tradition among this board and thousands of boards across the country. We do a couple of things. First, we're going to have what's called a solemnizing prayer. And that prayer is for us. It's not for you. It's for the commissioners. We'll have our chaplain come forward and help us with that. Following that, we'll have the pledge. So if commissioners, if you'll join me, we'll get started.
Lord, thank you for this beautiful day you provided for us. Thank you for an opportunity to come to this meeting today. We thank you for our county commissioners and preparation they've already made for this meeting, Lord, and thank you for the work they do. I pray as we have this meeting, you'll give them the wisdom they need to make the right decisions, do the right things, dear Lord. Thank you for your blessings upon us. Honor our prayer request today. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chaplain Taylor, for being with us. So, commissioners, we have the agenda that's been provided. We've got a couple of adjustments. A proclamation for the girls' softball team has been provided. We'll add that, if you don't mind, as item O on our consent. And then I'll tell you what, we are going over to the city council after this meeting at 5. We've been invited by city council to have hamburgers and hot dogs to honor our World Series champion young ladies. But let's make sure to read this into the record. So let's put this in as item 2A instead of consent. That way they'll see that we read it into the record. And then another one is a consent item from Nina Oliver regarding prenatal dental grant request. We'll make that item O. So the proclamation will be item 2A, and prenatal dental grant request will be consent agenda item O. Are there any other adjustments we need to make? Any changes, additions, deletions? All right, if not, all in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. And then we have the minutes that have been provided for us from August 5th and August 19th. Motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then we have the consent agenda as amended. So motion to approve the amended consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Anyone in public comment? All right. Then we'll move to read the proclamation. And Vice Chair Green, would you read that for us?
This is a proclamation honoring the Rowan Little League softball team that won the World Championship a few weeks ago. Whereas the Rowan Little League softball team under manager Steve Yang and coaches Josh Shan and Chris Evans is to be recognized and honored for their outstanding 2019 softball season, and whereas by their astonishing efforts and incredible athleticism, this dynamic team consisting of players Riley Haggis, Lexi Ritchie, Kennedy Fisher, Averill Harrell, Emma Ray Klein, Lauren Vanderpool, Cadence Lane, Candy Evans, Ashley Yang, Cassidy Seckler, Kenley Dextros, Carmen Fries, Arabella Schulenberger, and Campbell Shane have won the North Carolina District 2 Championship, the North Carolina State Championship, the Southeast Regional Championship, earning them a playoff berth in the Little League Softball World Series. And whereas this exceptional team traveled to Portland, Oregon, where they represented Rowan County in Little League Softball World Series and ended an amazing season on August the 14th, 2019, as the Little League Softball World Series champions, and whereas the excellence performed, dedicated, and commitment of these Rowan County young ladies, along with their coaching staff, have proven to be a source of admiration and inspiration to the youth and citizens of Rowan County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Rowan County Board of Commissioners does hereby honor the Rowan Little League softball team and its coaching staff for their astonishing achievements and commends them for their display of sportsmanship and leadership for Rowan County. This, the third day of September 2019.
All right, that's in a form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I won't even ask for those opposed. This is a long, long road that these young ladies and their families go down, and there's folks in this room that were part of that. James Meacham for tourism, the sheriff department, a lot of folks are part of this event and that leads up to that. So thank you for what you've done for these ladies. I had called over one of our colleges to the math department. This is kind of interesting, to try to get them to help us figure out what the odds are of being to 4 out of the last 5 World Series and winning it twice. And they said they'd have to write a program to do that because the numbers are so big. But just to win it twice, the percentage, the probability, well, this is where you kind of get in trouble if it's not right. We're looking at about 1 out of 1.5 billion of these ladies winning a couple of titles like this. So there's 24,000 teams across the world, so when you start doing the math on that, it's pretty amazing. So what they have done is an amazing feat, and we'll be with them tonight, and we'll present one of these proclamations to each of them, but we did want to read it into the record, so thanks for your patience on that. All right, we'll move on then to item number 3, and that is Mr. Stewart on public hearing for ZTA and STA 01-19.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it's a rather lengthy series of text amendments, primarily in the zoning ordinance, hence the ZTA. The STA for subdivision text amendment, there's 2 proposed changes therein. This is something that staff, along with Committee B of the Planning Board, has worked on off and on for about a year, and it contains just a myriad of different changes. But just to give you a little bit of information on the background of why there is these changes that are being brought before the board. The first item, from both of our land use plans, there's various recommendations on commercial industrial areas and rural and home-based business standards for both plans that you'll see throughout the document. A few new uses that either staff's identified or consistently get calls regarding, for example, event centers, and worked with these boards to develop standards for at least 4 of these uses here, and there's probably some others, but this is just trying to hit a few highlights here. The third option are just staff identified changes in the table of uses. Once you look at home occupation, neighborhood business, commercial areas, you want to create a consistent hierarchy in what would be expected in each, and a few other specific use changes that we've identified too, and a few resulting from North Carolina General Statute changes. Here are the sections involved. Primarily, Section 21 deals with zoning. 22 is subdivision. And this is a snippet from the 35 pages worth of amendments. This is what you would see in as a consistent theme throughout. Anything that's in red bold is new language. The highlighted areas with strike through would be removed. And on the sidebar, we have staff comments to provide some additional context as to the source of the change, or in this case here, there's a direct definition from the Administrative Code of DEQ, and also some references back to the land use plan of where that came from. Table of use don't have the same with the comments, but it goes back into those changes staff identified through the hierarchy and also the land use plan comments. All right, so what I wanted to touch on here too, for example, in the land use recommendations for commercial uses, for highway business and specific locations, you'll have in the plan where there's identified either a quarter, a commercial node, or other variables that's not in our district's purpose and intent statement in the zoning ordinance. So you'll see those changes early on in the amendments where we try to incorporate that language so this board will have not only that guide but also in the language of the ordinance to help you in making the decision on what designation to apply. And I thought it was pretty fitting too, if the board remembers application last year, Travis Cobble was kind of caught up in this mix of what district applies. Well, this would be helpful for staff and also the applicant to say, well, this needs to be neighborhood business, and referring back not only to the plan but also the ordinance as the guide. You look down in rural business, you have language in here for neighborhood business. You see the recommendation talks about increasing the number of allowed uses and also increasing the maximum building size. That's the source. You go back to the text, and that's the basis. Probably more changes involved in this amendment are related to the home-based business standards and the rural home occupation. If you read the acronym RHO consistently showed throughout the text. So that deals with the limiting the size of the structures involved and also having some visual separation for the business. With that said, there's multiple other references in the ordinance that do not get brought in. We've only picked up the ones that we felt were appropriate at this time, and then if, as directed by the board, others may fit in. But here's just a couple other reference for commercial nodes in the quarters that you see in the language for that text amendment. Rather than bore the board to death with all this, I would prefer the board to ask questions of the language, but just want to hit a few other procedural notes. Here's the ad from the Salisbury Post that ran the 21st and 28th as required by the ordinance. The planning board recommended unanimous approval 7-0. I guess I should just back up. The Committee B met on March 12th and April 3rd. They concurred with the staff recommendations with two exceptions. One dealt with the percent allowed building size for home occupations that staff proposed as 5%. They proposed it to be retained at 10, which is what the planning board recommended as well. So those are consistent. If the board chooses this text, then of course the planning board's recommendation and Committee B would be leave it at 10% for home occupations. And then there was a difference between the Committee B and the planning board on the screening distance. Right now it's 200. Committee B preferred it to be 100. Planning board agreed and said let's keep it at 200, and that would be what's in the language here. You see a statement of consistency provided here as a recommendation from the planning board. So for approval consideration, adopting the statement and then approving, denying, or tabling this request would be the two motions needed. Any questions of the board?
Shane, could you go back to the first slide you put up. Under number 2, new uses, what are indoor parts?
So the indoor parts, right now, if you're selling used motor vehicle parts by the OSHA website, the SIC, NAICS code, you're in this salvage yard category. You're parting off a vehicle. And the board had an application about a year ago that was they were used, but they were refurbished and being repackaged, and we didn't have an option for this. So staff and the board looked at, if the operation is totally indoors, you really don't have a salvage yard operation. You may be just selling that part, just as well could be new. So this provides a new option that in the commercial zoning district, you're not a salvage yard, you can be just like a new part store.
Okay, and then it says in ranges, what's your definition on ranges?
So the range, and I apologize trying to fit this information on one slide, that's dealing with the shooting range and archery range, merging those two into one use. There was a lot of overlap, trying to make it more clear and cut down on text.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what those two meant, that's all.
Shane, on page 11, under subsection 2, building setbacks, why is 12,000 to 20,000 and 20,000 and over stricken?
12,000 will be the absolute maximum that you could have as a home occupation.
Okay.
Right now, there's no end. If you had 100 acres, theoretically, you could have 10% of that under roof.
Second thing is, I know that we need to develop our statement of consistency. I was looking on page 29 in subsection 3, letter C. It says, a statement approving rezoning petition and containing at least all the following. And C said, that led me to believe we would need a second statement for reasonableness.
That's only in a rezoning.
Okay,
Correct. So you would look at 26. This is for text amendments.
okay. So it's not for this whole text amendment?
Correct.
Okay.
Shane, I know that there was some conversation here about 2 years ago about the turning radiuses in these cul-de-sacs. And was that addressed in this subdivision ordinance this time?
No, sir, that will be looked at probably either later this month. I would assume later this month. We now have response back from DOT. 2 weeks ago at the board meeting, I didn't have it at that time, so we're able to move forward, look at street widths and turnarounds.
Okay. I just know that we've got a lot of new homes getting ready to be built in these subdivisions that are coming here, and I'd like to make sure that we've addressed that issue and have it in place by the time that construction starts. Thank you.
All right, any other questions right now for Shane?
Yeah, Shane, I read through this, and I'm not sure if this question is pertinent or not, but I'm thinking about the new subdivisions that are being planned for the southern part of the county now that we have water, well, we will have water and sewer to the east side, and we know that the building pressure is coming up from Cabarrus County. My question is there anything in our ordinances now that will help to have orderly building and through our zoning apply, or is it still just kind of whatever?
Well, one, maybe what you're speaking of, that if that project occurs, of course, it will not be in the county. It'll be through the city of Kannapolis.
Yeah.
So when a development has water and sewer, depending on the circumstance, there may be a planned development subdivision or cluster subdivision where the board would review the application. But other than those situations, it would be the standard minimum. If you meet lot size, dimensional standards, and road type, there's no other input, no other planning board involvement, public hearing, et cetera. So does that answer your question?
Partially. I guess one of the things I'm concerned about is, you know, if you have a farm here and then you have a subdivision and, you know, the farm was there first and all those kinds of situations, or is that just something that the board has to make the decision on whether to allow that or not?
We've not been directed to look at that, if that's a concern of the board's. But at this point, no changes included here would address any of those.
And there's nothing in our current ordinance?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for Shane? All right, if not, then we'll take whatever time we need here to conduct a public hearing. And if there are folks who would like to come up and express an opinion on the proposed changes to the text amendment, come forward. All right, since we don't see any, we'll close the public hearing. And if is there any other discussion from the board? All right, if not, then let's see, I can offer up as a motion the following statement of consistency. The proposed amendments are appropriate and meet the needs of Rowan County, not provided in the Eastern and Western Land Use Plan. The updated definitions of the different zoning types protect and provides specifics to a business on residential properties, which allows staff to provide better clarification. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All right, then we need a motion to approve ZTA and STA 0-19.
So moved.
And a second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Shane, thank you. I meant to say, since we didn't meet yesterday, had we met yesterday, we would have said happy birthday to Miss Connie. So happy birthday a day late, and 47 looks great on you. So
73, and I claim every bit of it.
happy birthday. All right, Scott. Request for approval of grant documents for the Chewy project. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. As the Chairman said, back again to talk about Chewy. As y'all are aware, the county got a $1.5 million grant for the running of sewer to the Trevey property at Long Ferry and 85. It's approximately 4,000 linear feet of 16-inch gravity sewer line. And this is the next step in the grant process. There's a list that I guess you have in your agenda packet of documents that the state will need to proceed with the project. They include the grant agreement between the county and the state, funding approval notice, some forms to authorize the appropriate people with the county to sign off on documents, a request for release of funds, a vendor payment form, and also an environmental document, the categorical exclusion certification. I think Mr. Dees has approved all of these, and he's okay with them. So really what we're asking is that the board approve these documents, and then once that's done, the next step would be to submit these back to the state, and they'd issue a release of funds, which would authorize the county to select their approved contractor for the project.
So today, we're approving the documents that you provided to us and to Jay.
Correct. Yes.
Jay, you reviewed them, you're good with them? Okay. So you'll take the documents back to the state? Anything
Yeah.
else? We may need to do a call meeting later.
Right. Depending on this, some things we need to get worked out, but we're hopeful, worst case scenario, that everything gets lined up, that the commissioners can award the job at their next meeting, but we'd like to move it along for the sake of the project. So we may ask the board to consider a call meeting between now and, is it the 17th, I think, for the next call meeting, or the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. But we're going to try and push that forward as quickly as we can.
All right, so you see the 6 agreements and forms that have been provided. So we need to vote to approve these. So do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Scott, you'll let us know if we need to do a special call meeting.
I will. Thank you.
We'll all be happy to.
Okay.
Mr. Van, welcome back.
We're glad to be back. Commissioners, good afternoon. In your package, you should have a 2019 needs-based public school capital grant application. This grant, we see it as a unique opportunity for our county. It lines up with what we have going on and the plans that we have. The application deadline, as you can see, is September 13th, so it's a short time frame. It is open for Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties, and with us being a Tier 2 county, our maximum award for this grant could be up to $10 million. It is a one-to-one match. Assuming that we would get the maximum $10 million, we would have to match that. It is for new construction only, new buildings only. It is not for renovation work, and it is not allowed for purchasing property. New construction, new buildings only. As you're aware, the Board of Education has approved for us to move forward with the grant. They have slated a new South Rowan Elementary School in the China Grove area, and they have also approved that it be placed on some existing property that we have, Highway 29 in China Grove. So we would ask for your approval to move forward with the grant as well. We have an assurance page that our Board of Ed chairman would have to sign, and we would ask that Mr. Greg Eds, if you would sign it as well, assuming it's approved. It's an assurance page that assures that commissioners and school board are together with the funding. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that commissioners may have.
Could you define this as a no-brainer?
I do, but you know, I'll be glad to answer any questions. It's not a loan. It is a grant. It's up to $10 million, which is substantial, especially towards new construction. I hope that we receive some funding for the grant, but I know in talking to some other counties, there are a lot of counties that do not have $10 million in the pipe right now that they could match, or 5 or 2. So it kind of works out for us. And the good news is you cannot purchase property with it. That's not allowed. Well, we have some property, and we do have preliminary plans. So all those, in my opinion, are just another check mark for us. It's an advantage for us. And one thing that the application specifies, if you can address some critical needs in this application, it increases your odds. Well, obviously, if we replace schools built in the 20s or the 30s in a state-of-the-art facility, and we help reduce our safety challenges, and certainly we've addressed some critical needs, I think. So I think it's a good thing to go after.
Okay.
$10 million is huge. Even if it's 2 or 5 or whatever, it's a huge dollar amount for us, I think.
So from the financial standpoint, the 10 million matching, is that 10 million that we are not given right now? Or is it 10 million we have to find that we haven't already identified for future construction? Or does it fall within the 15 we did last year and possibly 60 coming up? Or is this 10 additional to that? Or is it?
It would be in a portion of that money that's already been designated for us. In the total package, the total 75, this 10 would be a part of that. So it's not an additional 10 over what you guys have already set aside. It is part of that. they ask if we have plans or if we have documents, and we indicated that we do have preliminary plans, but we do not have construction documents yet. So we actually have to list the time frame on when we would need their funding. Here's the overall project, we get it approved, and then we would need your money, and it goes out to 2021, 2022, and beyond. So we would be looking for some of their money in 2021.
So it has the, as you mentioned in the document, the Southern Ryan Elementary School. So does that limit the school board to only doing that project? Or if they decided they wanted to use it at a new school, say for east or west or north, are they able to move that money, or is it specifically only going to be for a Southern elementary school?
The grant money, it's been my experience in the past, if you put a south, east, west, or whatever north school on here, it's been my experience in the past with this listed as South Rowan Elementary, they would want you to do that project. Now, the flexibility I've seen before in the past is that we owned a piece of property, we moved forward with this project, there were issues with the property that were unforeseen, and we need to move it 5 miles down the road. I've seen flexibility there, but the project stayed the same. I think if you completely change the project to another direction in the county, I'm not sure that they would. I'm not sure that they would honor it. It would be something we could certainly verify, but what I've seen in the past, you can change sites if the project stays the same.
So but it's not specific to that piece of property.
No, well, in our application it will be, because that's what our school board has directed me, to move forward with, is a South Rowan Elementary School on the Highway 29 China Grove property. Now, I think that the property could be changed itself, but I don't think that you can, unless they've changed the way they do it, I don't think you could say, I'm gonna go build one in the west now. I changed my mind.
So if they found a better spot that's more convenient,
I think
land
that
in the southern part of the county, the monies could be used on that.
I think so. I think the state's open for that. And I've been through that before, where they did allow that you could go down the road. It's a better site, and we think we can save more money or less money building here than this site designated. We've had that flexibility before, but to change it to a whole nother area of the county and a different project name, that's a little more difficult. Yeah. But to answer your question, yes, I think so. We're trying to verify it with the grant folks now. We hadn't gotten that answer yet, but that is one question that we have into them now.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve the needs-based public school capital fund grant application?
So moved.
And a second? Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Anthony. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is landscape design for the airport. There's two different task orders for you. The first option is to provide just one preliminary design and schematic design for the outside area of the airport. Option 2 provides 3 different designs with renderings that would allow the board and stakeholders at the airport to decide which they like the best. Option 1 is $16,305, and option 2 is $35,845. And again, the purpose of this is to provide a exterior upfit of the airport's grounds and landscaping.
Did you I was reading something else in here. Did you explain the difference between the two bids?
Yeah, the first one is, both are from the same company through our engineer, but the first one is just to provide one design to upfit the exterior landscape and facade at the airport. And option two provides 3 different plans, including renderings that you can look at and pick, decide between, as well as the commissioners and stakeholders. So the additional $15,000 will give you 2 more options along with the renderings.
So we don't get any renderings on option one?
Hold on one second. I mean, you would get as I understand it, you would get like an overlay plan, but I don't know if it included a true rendering. This plan shall be hand-drawn in schematic nature. They will include general information regarding construction materials. Conceptual designs shall be accompanied by color image boards, including landscape materials, images, and material boards. Client shall review and comment on the directions of the final.
Sounds like it.
Well, I'd have to see something before I can say, yeah, let's do it.
I don't need 3 of them.
No, one's good for me. I mean, it ain't that much you can do.
We have really not talked about this yet publicly. For a lot of years, there's been good work going on at the airport. Thankful to Commissioner Pierce for a lot that has happened out there, an awful lot. One of the things that the public has heard us talking about is expanding that airport, expanding the runway in order to be able to bring a different class of airplane that comes in there. With that comes more fuel purchases, and it would attract planes that would want to base out of here, and bigger planes or bigger tax revenues, and so all that's a good thing. A few years ago, we were working diligently to extend the runway on the north end of the airport, and we worked with civil engineers and traveled to Washington, D.C. We did a whole lot, only to find out that the cost of expanding that runway was cost prohibitive. At the north end, the topography drops off, so to build it up and put 500 or 600 feet at the end of that runway, we could not justify the cost of doing that. And when I say justify, to the FAA and to the NCDOT Airport Division. So some things began to change on the south end. The south end is bordered by Airport Road. The south end of the runway is bordered by Airport Road. And initially, years ago, there was talk of extending the runway south rather than north. But there are some issues there because you would need to close Airport Road, and there was also some contaminated site across Airport Road. That the laws and the rules would forbid us from extending over contaminated land. we felt like there were some changes in that, so we began to revisit the southern extension once the northern extension was a dead deal. And just a few months ago, we found out that the FAA, or whether it's EPA or FAA or DOT, they finally got an answer from Washington that we still could not pave over top of some contaminated areas. So in effect, this has closed the possibility of extending to the south unless something changes in the law about paving over contaminated area. And it appears that we can't extend to the north because of cost. So the decision then became, if we can't go north or south, what do we do? And Commissioner Pierce and I have met with our civil engineers, with the manager. We've had a lot of conversation, and I think we just came up with the answer of them. We need to make our airport the best 5,500-foot runway airport in the region. And so to do that, we're going to need to start sprucing some stuff up so that it's something that Rowan County can be proud of and will attract bigger and better investment. The airport is a boon to the county as far as their investment goes. It is responsible for hundreds and hundreds of jobs and millions of dollars in revenues, and that's a good thing. So what this is about today that the manager has brought is really a result of years and years and years of discussions regarding runway extensions, and now we don't close the book on it because anything can change, but right now we're going to focus on what we have and look to make Mid-Carolina Regional Airport an airport of choice in the region. Commissioner Pierce, would you like to add anything?
No, I'd just like to say that thanks to the board for letting us do a lot of things at the airport. Like, we just finished construction of a new meeting room that was desperately needed, and I understand it's being used quite a bit. We have a lot of corporate people that come in, and they expressed to us they would like to have a place on site to meet and not have to get in a van and drive to some other meeting place, and this has worked out extremely well, and I think this is just one of the finishing touches that we need to do for our airport to give it that designation of it's the best airport in this region and attract those aircraft that will come in. And I will add to what Chairman Ed said. When we got the cost for the north area to do the extension to the north, it was going to be in excess of $15 million. And I asked at that point in time, I asked Kevin, our airport manager, I said, if we added 500 more feet, how many more aircraft could we attract? And his answer was none, that you're either going to have to go big or go home. So I figured, well, let's just save the taxpayers that money and just make this the best airport that we possibly can and continue to do things to attract people here. And one of the big things, and the chairman and the manager will attest to, is we had residents on the tarmac that own businesses, and some of their concerns was it was getting kind of shaggy out there. We were having overgrown bushes. We were having a lot of weeds growing up around the building, and it just wasn't being maintained very well. So we've taken the approach of let's do our job, let's make it look as best we can, and let's do some things to soften the look so it doesn't look like a jail. I mean, you go down there, it's 10-foot chain link fence with razor wire on top, and I'm like, really, does this kind of look that we want to entice people to come here? So that's what this architectural plan is about, is to soften the look and give us a more pleasing appearance to those people that come to our airport. So with that being said, I'll make a motion to approve option 1.
Thank you. All right, I'll second that. And is there any other discussion?
Well, I'd just like to say, we're talking about we're not going to be able to expand and this type of thing. And to the general public, that does not mean that we're going to be pigeonholed as a small town airport. I was out there the other night at a meeting right across the road, and there was a 12-passenger jet that took off right in front of us. So there's plenty of planes that we can attract and will attract. And Charlotte Airport and other larger airports are so busy nowadays that folks have a hard time even getting in the flight path out there to take off or to land. So our airport is a great asset to us, and I think it's going to continue to be a great asset in the future.
Thanks, Jim. All right, if there's no other discussion, we have a motion and a second for option 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Thanks, manager. Back to you for next item, item number 7, West End Plaza renovations. Next steps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to, Leslie has a brief presentation on the finances.
I can give you the short version or the slightly longer version. The longer version would sort of be what we've, just revenues and expenditures also. Okay. So West End Plaza first came on my radar anyway in December of 2013. And on December 2nd, 2013, the board passed a declaration of intent to reimburse. And then on December 17th, 2013, we purchased West End Plaza, which was the Salisbury Mall at the time. In May of 2014, we submitted an application to the LGC to finance the purchase. And the LGC decided not to put it on their June 3rd, 2014 agenda. So there were some, the LGC is not supposed to deal in politics, but politics did get involved with this transaction. So then we had an election and some things changed, and we moved forward with the financing. We submitted the next application to finance West End Plaza in May of 2015. And that was approved by the LGC, and so we closed the loan in May of May 14, 2015. There, we borrowed $3,950,000. We considered $2.5 million of that as taxable because it was being rented, and we were receiving revenue. So our taxable interest rate was 2.5%. The other $1,450,000 was considered tax exempt, and we had an interest rate of 1.7%. So we really began receiving rent payments from tenants at West End Plaza during fiscal year 2014, but it was a partial year. So as far as the general ledger goes, the maximum amount of rent payments we received, we hit in 2015, fiscal year 2015. And that amount was just in excess of $600,000. If you fast forward to fiscal year 2019, from tenants, we received $439,000. We also received roughly $46,000 from event rentals. So in total, the revenue generated at West End Plaza was $485,000 last year. Last year also had, the West End Plaza is represented on the county's books in 2 different places. One, it's a division within the general fund, and another is a capital project fund, okay? So in the general fund, we pay for the salaries for the staff that are out there. We pay electricity, which is the outside of salaries and benefits, that's the second highest expense there. We pay for repairs and maintenance, those kind of things. So in fiscal year 2019, we had the largest expenditure outlay, which was $432,000. So we had revenue. Revenues have been decreasing from tenants because we lost tenants, particularly Belk's, JCPenney's, Payless Shoes, Books A Million. So from when we purchased them all through today, we've lost those tenants. But even with that last year, we had revenue of $485,000, and we spent $432,000 in the general fund. That does not include debt service. Okay. So the loan was a 10-year loan, and it goes, we will pay that off if we go by the current debt schedule in 2025. The amount of debt service budgeted this year is $445,000, and over the next, not counting this year, 5 years, it will drop to $401,536 in fiscal year 2025. If we want to pay it off,
Are we making two payments because of the different interest rates?
we are. They bill us separately. One is taxable and one, but that is combined. That's the debt service combined. If we wanted to pay off both notes in the month of September, our payoff would be just shy of $2.4 million. It'd be $2,396,000. Yes.
Leslie, do you have the breakdown on the payment or the payoff for the loan that's at 2.5%?
Good question.
I can get that for you. I do not have that.
Okay, well, I just know the other loan's at 1.7. I don't think we're going to get a rate lower than that, but,
Right.
you know, I would consider paying off one of the loans and save that interest.
Okay. Okay. And I'll send you that number.
Thank you.
Okay. So in fiscal year 2020, we budgeted a transfer from the general fund to the capital project fund of $1,299,820. When we make that transfer, we will have roughly $2,790,000 in the capital project fund.
That's when?
Excuse me?
That's when?
As soon as I make the transfer. Yes. We typically do transfers early in the month of September. We make sure that we have enough tax revenue. We've received enough tax revenue to make it through July and August. So we're at that point, so I'll be processing that this week.
You've also talked about by this time next year.
By this time next year, we will be moving $1,440,360. That's what we're projected to put in the fiscal year 2021 budget as the transfer.
Is that going to stabilize at that rate?
Yes. The debt that was coming off our books that we targeted to move that amount of debt service as it fell off from a loan over, that will end at that. Just so you know, the The revenues in the capital project fund are the $3,950,000 from the loan proceeds. And with the movement of the transfer for fiscal year 2020, we will have moved $5,880,000 over in transfers. And then we do have interest revenue of roughly $51,000 in that fund. So currently, let's see if I have that. When we have the money, so without the transfer this year, we have roughly 1.5 million at fiscal year end, so that's earning interest. We've spent roughly our budget is, this is 2018. We've spent roughly 7.4 million to date in the capital project fund. And that would be for the purchase, for the renovations, for Board of Elections and Veteran Services, and then roofing. We also have some pavement repairs out there that came from the capital project fund. So that's roughly what I had.
So Mike asked a good question. So you'll have roughly 1.5 million going into this fund, into this capital fund starting, well, for 2020, 2021.
Already there.
Correct.
Right. And so I think he asked the question, is that stabilizing there? Is it going up or down?
So what we were doing, for many years, we were moving 615,000 every year. And then, starting 2 years ago, as some debt service dropped off from other projects that were just considered general fund projects, as that debt service dropped off. So if last year we had budgeted, 400,000 for something, and that was the last year of payment on that debt service, we moved that debt service over to the transfer. But yes, it stabilizes at the $1,440,000.
And so that's where you come up with the figure when we're considering any type of projects out there that we have current loan capacity of about 15 million.
It is current capacity at 15 million. If we did pay off the loan early, and I did check with the loan covenants, there is no early prepayment penalty. They do want us to pay it at a regular debt service payment date. And that's semi-annually. So opportunities arise every 6 months. So we would have some additional dollars to fund a larger amount to borrow. And it depends on if we pay off the whole. If we pay, debt service this year is $445,000. So if you're no longer having debt service at all, but I'm with what you've already been talking about, the 1.7% is a great rate. So for comparison purposes, for a 15-year loan for West Elementary, which was in 2017, the interest rate was 2.29%. And that was, the climate, interest rates have been rising, but now the Fed is expected to drop the rate again, so they've gone up now. I don't expect them to go much lower than they were in 2017, certainly. But that was for a 15-year loan. The other loan that we've done recently is the 7.1 million, 6.5 million for Rowan Salisbury Schools, 600,000 for Rowan Cabarrus Community College. And the interest rate there for a 10-year loan was 2.08%. So I would agree with the early prepayment for
The taxable part.
the taxable loan that we have on our books.
And that's 2.5 million?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't know that we know.
Is it,
That was the amount that we originally borrowed. Let's see what, hang on, I can at least tell you the, where do I have that?
I mean, current payoff is 2.4, but we don't know what portion of that is the taxable portion, right?
Correct. That's who it was.
How long would it take you to get that number?
Let me see what the principal is here. This is taxable. So of that loan, I'd have to verify, but it looks like we still owe 1.5 million.
$1.5 million for the taxable portion of the loan.
Yes, ma'am. I can find it.
Well, that's kind of good news if you're going to pay it off. It's not good news while you're in it. If you're going to, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you're paying it off, that means that there will be a much lower percentage of remaining balance that's a low rate.
Correct.
That's what I'm getting at.
Correct. And I can tell you the breakdown. So we just made a payment today because the payments are due September 1 and March 1. So we actually, because it was a holiday, it was due September 1, we actually made the payment this past Friday. So the amount is, that we owe, since we've made that payment, is $1,375,000.
So that's the, as we sit here today, that's the actual payoff.
Of one of the loans.
One, yeah, the
Yes,
taxable part.
and there will be, it depends on when we pay it off, and there will be interest, some interest that will accrue until that payment date.
Right, yeah.
Now we'll be in March, so we couldn't pay it off till March?
Mike can negotiate that with the bank.
If they say no, then it's just a math problem of figuring out accrued interest for 6 months versus their penalty.
The amount of the interest, if we paid it off 6 months, so we pay it off on March 1st, would be $17,187. That would be the interest amount. So, and I'll tell you we came into this year with a balance on the taxable at 1.5 million. The semi-annual debt service payment is 125,000 on the taxable. So on the non-taxable, coming into this year, the amount of debt we still owed on the tax exempt was 870,000. And we pay semi-annually $72,500 with each payment.
One more time, 875,000?
$870,000?
70.
Yeah, so that was the balance at 6/30/2019. And then the debt service payment semi-annually, the amount of the principal is $72,500. I think that's everything that I know about Weston Plaza.
Well, that's a lot.
So, I mean, I think you've said it a couple times. It would make sense to pay off the taxable side, which is the 1.375 million. Does that change anything?
Looking at it roughly, 300,000, I think the 15 million that we had said that we could borrow would go to about 17 million. It could be more, and it depends on interest rates. Because when I run amortization schedules, you know, when you guys are planning to do things, I use the interest rate that I use is usually somewhere 4%. And the interest rates, I mean, we just got one several months ago. It was 2.08 for 10 years.
Well, I know this has been, well, it was an issue in the past. It seems to have pretty much subsided. I know that outside folks that I have met that have looked at the mall for projects have been astounded at what was paid for. They just can't believe that the county got that facility and all the land for what they paid for it. So I know there was a lot of political stuff going around, but anyway, most folks are, from the outside, are shocked that we got that kind of a deal. And this isn't something that Rowan County is the only one that ever gone through. I mean, this is happening all across the country as counties and municipalities deal with these issues. So the question that I think more so has been asked is, when are you going to do something with that facility? And we've done a few things with it. And I think the answer has been, we've not been distracted, but we've had other fish to fry, if you want to put it that way.
Correct.
With infrastructure, with water, sewer, with Old Beatty Ford Road, with school crises and all those issues. But in the meantime, we've really been preparing for this moment. I want to really give a lot of credit to Commissioner Caskey, who has really done a lot of thinking about this and given some direction. So we're in the position we are now because Commissioner Caskey's had a lot of great ideas about how to get us there. So we are now in this financial position where we weren't before, to be able to start making some investment that'll make a difference in that facility, in that side of town, and in that side of the county. So the question now is, where do we go? We met weeks ago, maybe, I don't know when it was now, to talk about a plan with agricultural department, which would include 4 or 5 organizations related to them that would go in there. So we had a public meeting out there, had a lot of positive response. And so now the question is, where do we go from here?
Commissioner Edds, just want to let you know that Commissioner Caskey and myself have been working with the sheriff and his administration. They have requested that we consider moving the sheriff's department out to the Big Lots building. He says he needs more space, would not move the jail facility, would not move the bailiffs. It'd be strictly his administration, and that would alleviate the parking situation that's there at the courthouse. Would also allow us to move the magistrate's office inside the facility instead of it sitting out there in another parking lot. That would enable us to bulldoze that building, give more parking downtown, which has always been an issue, as you well know. The sheriff and I have met several times with Mike. We've toured the facility. He likes the facility. In the space needs study that they did 3 years ago, it identified 29,000 square feet would be what he would need to take care of his organization. The Big Lots building is 26,000. There's a capability to enclose the back loading dock area to give him that additional space. So I would like for us to work with the sheriff to see if that's something that we could, to move him out there to increase the presence of our sheriff's department so that more people can see it. It'd be a great asset to the west end part of the county. And, you know, our ultimate goal is to make sure our citizens are safe. And if our sheriff is telling me he needs that space to do that job, I think we ought to take that under consideration.
All right. So what are you asking us to do?
Well, I'm asking us to have the architect meet with the sheriff and let him give him a laundry list of the items that he needs to be incorporated into that space, and let the sheriff have and his staff have input on what they would like to see as a finished product, so that we can, just like you've done with the Agricultural Extension Agency, have a blueprint, and let's get a price, and then see if that's something that we can fit into the other things that we've already identified that we want to upfit out there. And let's use that facility for what it was designed for.
So would that be a phase 2 project, or are you asking for this to be in lieu of?
I'm not asking it to be in lieu of anything. I'm just saying I'd like, as we're going to move forward and with moving county offices, I'd like for this to be a priority. I'm not saying it's the only thing. Yeah. I'm simply saying that I think we need to give the sheriff the space that he needs to do his job. And if we're going to start spending the money out there, let's put this on the table also, and let's just see what all we can do within our budget constraints. And that's why I asked originally for a workshop, is to really sit down and look and see what all we can accomplish and stay within our budget and not have to raise taxes to pay for it. So that's kind of what I'm asking for. And I would also ask, I've been in touch with the county manager. ADW is currently our architect for West End Plaza, but there is another architectural firm that specializes in law enforcement as well as the jails and the facilities. And I would probably ask that we maybe do an RFQ to see if they're interested in quoting this, since this is what they specialize in. No reflection against ADW. They do a great job, but they don't specialize in law enforcement. So I would ask that we would consider that also.
So do we want to, because I know the sheriff's talked about, he has 3 things that he's interested in for the future, and one is, I think the number 1 need he said was property evidence storage. So do we want to talk about all 3 things, the property, future jail expansion, and administration offices as part of the RFQ for an architect?
Well, there again, that's why I asked that we have a work session so that we could sit down and prioritize what we want to do and make sure we put everything on the table at one time so that we don't leave any pieces off. And I think if we're going to put an RFQ out for an architect to do the law enforcement piece, that we ought to include all 3 projects that he's identified that will be coming up within a very short period of time.
Because I agree with you, because the really, the sheriff needs to have some discussion with the architect before we really know what they can and shouldn't do. And they may look at the Big Lots and say this is not really going to work for them, but hopefully that might be something that would work for them. So I don't think we're at the point that we can talk about moving him out there, the conversation. But I do agree that we should talk about getting an architect and let the sheriff work with him, and see what the sheriff really wants to do and needs, instead of, kind of us pushing from here.
I guess I'm a little confused because I thought that the sheriff's office was going to go out where public health and DSS is currently. Has that plan changed?
Well, that was an idea. I mean, we've never had a vote or official vote. My understanding is DSS and Health haven't asked to move, so I don't know if they still need to move or not.
I guess I would differ with that interpretation. Their biggest problem is they don't have enough parking. And that was one of the number one reasons to take them out there.
Mr. Manager, how would we proceed with this from a sheriff's perspective? Kind of have those conversations.
I mean, if the board wanted to do an RFQ for a public safety architect to look at, because really when we did the county space needs study, they left the jail and correctional facilities out of it. So if you did an RFQ for that, you could include the administration building. And then I don't know that we need to study the, no, evidence. I mean, I think we've got space and we probably can do that without an RFQ, without a lot of study. But the jail and the sheriff administration, you could just direct staff to, if the board wanted to vote to direct staff to do an RFQ and bring a recommendation back to you on an architect to do a jail study and sheriff administration study, we could do that.
We do that with a motion and a vote.
You could do that right now if you wanted to.
I make that in form of a motion.
All right. A second for that?
Sam?
All right. Any,
Just, if we're going to go this direction, shouldn't we also be looking at the same consideration then for public health and social services? Because with the future growth of our county, we're going to need more space because we're going to need more people. I don't think the opioid crisis is going to go away anytime soon. And of course, we are still a high poverty county, and does the number of people go up in our county? I'm thinking that you're going to have the same kind of stresses and requirements, additional requirements for social services. They're bursting at the seams right now, so.
Well, I don't know that I disagree with you, Judy. And I'm just unaware that any official requests have come to us from the DSS board or the health board as far as asking to go ahead and find a new space. I've had the same understanding of the parking issue that you have. So I don't want you to think this is trying to slight them, but they haven't, as far as I know, the DSS board hasn't asked us for any new space now. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you know if they've asked us, Mr. Manager?
I mean, I don't know that I've received any direct communication from them, and during the budget process, I don't recall, ever asking, that they don't, when folks ask for new employees, a lot of times they'll ask for office space, and I don't recall there being any office space.
Folks, we're gonna add, at least 1,500 jobs around here in the next 2 years. At some point in time, isn't DSS and the health department, isn't there an opportunity that their folks might go to work somewhere and that they have less demand on it?
We talked about
Leslie, go ahead, Leslie. She kind of can touch on that, Mr. Green, about the,
So with DSS this past budget year, because we did add 4 new positions that would be in the offices at the DSS building, and we added 2 that would be elsewhere at the hospitals or VA. And what they've been doing for a number of years, but I do think it accommodates the new positions that we added for fiscal year 2020, but I do think they're roughly, to my knowledge, out of room. But the reason that we've been able to do that and they've been able to fit them into the building is because they started imaging their records. So they had a large records room when we first renovated for their move to that facility. So those records are no longer there, so the shelving is out, and they're putting in cubicles or offices as needed.
You know, I'll just say, I think most of us are hoping that the trend will go the other direction. You've got the best economy you've had since in the last 50 years, and we keep looking for and hoping and praying for a good economy dividend that we begin to see locally. And so I've not gotten any requests either. Frankly, I'm hoping we are not getting them. I'm hoping things, trend better over there. And I know that we've had a lot of priorities that we're juggling and hoping that that phone doesn't ring, so to speak. And so far it's not. So.
With that logic, would it not apply to the sheriff's department also?
Well, I think we have a couple of issues, and they may apply also to Health Department and DSS, that they've got a stated issue right now with evidence, that they are in desperate need of a facility for evidence. I won't repeat some of the statistics I think I heard about some of the evidence they're keeping, but they're desperately in need of that. And then we've got some legal issues regarding jail population and space that we'll have to provide. So it was for some time that we had quite a bit of available space, that we were housing folks from out of the county in our facility, and my understanding is now that is gone. And so we have our own folks in our own facilities, and we'll be required to provide additional space, and we hope that we see a dividend there as well with a better economy. So a couple of those things were our backs are up against the wall from a legal perspective, where the state steps in and says you have to have adequate space, and we know that he is desperate for the evidence space. So it's not to say that we can't look at those things. It's this is in our face right now. This has been brought up to us right now, and so I think that's why we're dealing with the issue of the sheriff.
As far as requesting the space, it was my understanding when we did the space study that was the request for space. But number 2 is in talking with sheriff's departments and mental health and drug-related offenses, that if we were to divert drug addicts and mental health patients, that our population might drop as much as in half. So,
Say that again?
I said, if we can divert, in other words, put mental health patients into mental health treatment rather than housing them in the jail, and get addicts into treatment rather than housing them in the jail, that we could drop as much as 50% in our jail population.
Gotcha.
Well, I think one of the differences is that there's a DSS board, and then as far as the sheriff's department well, it's the office of the sheriff, so there's only one person over there who makes the decisions. So I don't have a problem if the DSS board wants to tell us that they're interested in helping with the parking or helping with moving or whatever. It's a little, like I said, it's a little different because there's a whole board over there. Here you talk to one individual that's the sheriff. So, like I said, I don't have a problem with us talking about that if they want to bring that over. Do you think that the bigger issue is space for employees or for the parking at this point?
I think especially with public health, it's both. And with social services, I mean, that's what Leslie said. I mean, we have maxed out because of freeing up all that space with imaging all the old paper records. So there is, I think, a large need in both. But if you go out there during the day and try and find a parking spot, it is extremely difficult. And it's not just the employees, it's all the people that are there for services.
All right, so what we have is a motion and a second to ask the manager to get with the sheriff on doing a study on that. And so any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so then moving to Ag and the Ag Center, what would we like to do there?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see us go ahead and go forward with the request from the EDC, from EDM. ADM, excuse me. I'll get it right in a minute. Whoever the architects are for
ADW.
ADW. I think we do, I'm fine with, as we just voted for the sheriff, to see what needs are there, but I think we need to keep this project going forward, and I'd like to see us do that.
All right.
Second.
No. Do you have a specific motion?
Yes, to have the architects go ahead and give us an estimated cost on the design A, design B that they had presented to us.
So, so can we set some parameters on that? Would you mind if I modify?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
So ask the manager to empower ADW to begin design based on the dollars that we have available, begin design with a base bid of $15 million. And then also present to us alternate bids for additional items. I know the $15 million won't cover the cost of everything they showed us, but then we can, this is going to take 6 months for them to design, so we don't know where we'll be in 6 months. So would that be?
Negotiate a contract and bring it back.
Would that be acceptable? Ask them to do design work with a base bid, with a base cost of $15 million?
Yes, sir.
And then to provide alternate bids beyond that?
So are you, because a lot of the feedback I got was most people were okay with the inside, the outside was the issue. So you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So the alternate bids would be, so we want to make sure we get the inside done. So we don't want half the inside done and a third of the outside done that totals $15 million. We want the full inside done so that we can move those departments all at once, and then the alternate bids would be for exterior. Is that what you're after?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah.
The only other thing I had is, in that vein, when we had the open house, a couple people had talked to me about additional breakout space, and I talked to the architect about whether or not we could utilize some of the upstairs, some of the rooms up there. Would that be part of a alternate plan?
Yeah,
Or can we
sure.
add that as an alternate option?
All right, anything else? So,
I just want to add that I guess I was talking to different people than Commissioner Caskey, because people were very, very supportive that I talked to about the outside improvements and how it will really, be a real focal point and place where we can, with much pride, bring in outside groups. So the green space is a huge issue, and I understand you want to have it in an alternate bid, but I just wanted to make sure that that was in the record too.
thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I guess maybe I should have clarified is that they were saying they didn't want to get the outside done and not have the inside finished, because that was the most important, and they did like the option B. And I like option B. It's just our funds are limited, so I want to make sure we get the inside functional part first.
All right. So Jim and I have a motion. Commissioner Caskey, did you second it?
He did.
Yes.
All right, any other discussion?
Okay, so we are voting to have them have drawings for the inside of the building and alternates for the outside of the building and the additional space Mike was talking about upstairs.
Yeah, with a base bid of 15 million. So let's say, for example, and this isn't going to happen, that all of it came up to 10 million, then it would all fit within the base bid.
Okay.
But if it came up to 17 million, then we would want to see that the inside was completed and what the alternates they would recommend above the $15 million base bid that we then could pick from as like a menu of, if we wanted to go beyond that, if our finances allowed. Does that make sense?
That's, all right, that's fine with me.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Hi, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Since we're on the top subject, can I bring up two other things?
Yes, sir.
So since now we're at the point where I think we've kind of got an idea of what we're going to start doing here with the mall, there's going to be sections that we're not going to utilize for a while, and I would like to make a motion that the manager come back with a policy for us to be able to rent out spaces from veteran service over to Badcock Furniture, because I don't think we're going to utilize that space anytime soon, so we might as well go ahead and see what the community can use that for as far as renting it out.
Would you be agreeable to ask him to come back with a market rate plan?
Sure, yeah.
Is that a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And then the other thing was, Commissioner Pierce and I have talked a little bit about the cinema, and also you and I have talked about the cinema a little bit, and I don't know if we want to go ahead and start some conversations about what, if anything, we want to do with that property.
Yeah, I had mentioned to Aaron, I mean, I think it would be neat if we could get a $1 or $3 cinema back in there. Most of the public hadn't been in it in a while. The folks, I believe, that were operating it last, they owned the seating and the equipment. So when they left, they took all that with them, so you've got 6 empty rooms. so, I asked Aaron, what could we as a county do to try to entice an operator back in there through some type of incentive to get someone back in there? I don't know that works. Is there someone we could contact? Is there a cinema operators guild? Is there an association? Could we contact someone and say, hey, we've got a theater that the county would like to see reopen and we would work with you? I don't know.
You may want to start with contacting Commissioner Steve Morris. in Tiberias.
I did. I spoke with Steve.
Yeah.
But the only, and I'll finish, the only other thing that, well, I mean, there's other things certainly that can be used for. The floors create some issue because they're slope floors, but it'd be good for lectures and things in there. Is it something that Catawba or Livingstone would be interested in purchasing and using it for lectures? Or we've talked about some type of training facilities. Now, we'll have that at the mall, but there's, maybe we just say, and maybe what you're saying, Mike, is that we just start looking at what could we do with that facility. And I think overall that's a good idea. So.
I will say that the sheriff and I, as well as Commissioner Caskey, have had conversations about he would like to see the possibility of having an indoor gun range so that his police officers can practice and open it to the public with a third-party operator to actually run the facility, with the understanding that the law enforcement officials here in the county get to go and shoot for free. That would facilitate us having our own loads, because we don't need these high-powered loads in a facility like that. But since it's out there by itself, there's no residential problems around it, so the noise factor shouldn't be an issue for anybody. And, since it's empty, it's an empty building completely. Well, I'd like to see if there's a possibility we could get somebody to come in as a third-party operator, operate for profit, and whatever profit they make, we have a distribution to the county. Like I said, the sheriff had a good idea. I thought it was a good idea to pursue, and I think Commissioner Caskey's on board at least looking at it. So,
all right, well, could we ask the manager to, you got a lot to do. Why are you still here? Do you have stuff to do? All right.
So we're going to ask him to find requests for proposals for cinema or a
just use.
range?
Just use in general. Let's
Use.
start.
So do we want to set a time? Because, we've talked about this several times over the years, and we keep coming back to, maybe we should do something with it. Because if we don't find anything to do with it, I don't see if somebody wants to purchase it. We have never actually posted it out there for sale. But I don't, I said if one of these options works, that's great. If not, after a certain amount of time, maybe we could see if people want to purchase the property.
Aaron, is this something Siobhan could research for us?
Yeah, we can certainly research it.
Okay. All right. Is that okay, Mike? You want to set a 6 month, 3 month, 6 month?
Yeah, something, yeah. Whatever's convenient for staff. And I said, it's not an imminent need, but we have kicked it down the road a few times, so I think we need to just set some sort of time frame.
Yeah.
6 months that's fine.
All right. Do we need to vote on that?
We can, just to make sure it's,
All right, so,
that's your motion?
yeah, make a motion to ask Siobhan, or the manager's office, to start researching possible uses for the old theater, and with a time not to exceed 6 months.
Second?
Favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, next item, budget amendments. Short page of them. What's up with that? That's a good thing. Okay, motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, on board appointments, first page, David Jones has applied for reappointment to the Atwell Volunteer Fire Department Fire Commissioner. It's a 2-year term. Motion to approve in a second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Enochville Volunteer Fire Department Fire Commissioner, So Deborah Curry has applied for reappointment to a 2-year term, but she's already had 2 years, 2 terms of 2 years. And so we would need to vote to waive the term limits for her for this 3rd term. So do we have a motion to waive the term limit?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve Deborah Curry in a second.
Second. So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You can't motion in a second yourself.
seconded first.
We got a second, all right.
Seconded first.
Mitchell Rousey applied for reappointment, so motion and approval of that.
So move.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Town of Granite Quarry Planning Board, Ronald Jacobs applied for reappointment and also requested a reappointment of Howard Kessler Jr. and Kelly Smith as ETJ members, so motion to approve those 3.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Board of Health, James Fuller applied for vacancy as a pharmacist seat, motion and second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Historic Landmarks Commission, Jody Taylor applied to fill a vacancy, motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
JCPC, Justin Mounts is the county manager's designee. There's no term limits on that. Motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Lock Volunteer Fire Department, Commissioner Selena Sells Hamrick applied for a vacancy. Motion and a second.
Motion.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Tourism Development, Michelle Patterson applied to fill a chamber seat, and John Kettner applied to fill the county tourism seat. These appointments will be for 2 years. Motion and a second.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Zoning Board of Adjustment, Michael Harrell applied to fill 1 vacant at-large seat. And motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Community, we have 45 vacancies on various county boards, so please get involved and help your community. We know that you're community-minded, so please join in. So, all right, move that we move into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 to consider approval of the minutes of closed session on March 18th, July 1st, and August 19th of 2019, and 143-318.11A3 for attorney-client privilege communication regarding pending litigation. And certainly don't want to be rude, but we have an invitation at 5 o'clock to join the city council. So we're going to try to move through this pretty quickly. As soon as the doors close, we'll get started. And there we go. All right, we're back from closed session. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.